Captain Daniel Cross stared at the sensor readings on his command screen and felt his blood turn cold. The human survey ship Wanderer had been conducting routine exploration in the outer rim territories for 3 weeks without incident. They were mapping star systems far from the established trade routes where few ships ever traveled. It was supposed to be boring work, but Daniel preferred boring. He had seen enough excitement during the border conflicts to last a lifetime. Lieutenant Maya Sullivan called out from the communications station with urgency in her voice. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the 4th planet in this system." Daniel turned his chair toward her. "What kind of energy signatures?" Maya's fingers danced across her console as she refined the readings. "Heavy weapons fire, sir. Multiple sources. The signatures match military-grade plasma bombardment." Commander Jake Morrison, the first officer, moved to the tactical station. His face was grim as he examined the data. "Captain, those energy levels are consistent with orbital bombardment. Someone is attacking a planetary surface from space." Daniel felt a knot form in his stomach. The galactic community had strict laws about orbital bombardment. It was considered one of the worst war crimes possible because it meant attacking defenseless populations. "What planet is that?" Daniel asked Dr. Lisa Chung. The ship's xenobiologist pulled up the planetary database. "It's designated Refuge 7 in our records. Home to the Kalahari species. They're a peaceful pre-spaceflight civilization. Population estimated at 3 billion. They're under galactic community protection." Daniel's hands gripped the armrests of his command chair. Protected species meant no one was supposed to interfere with their development. Attacking them was illegal under every galactic law. "Take us closer, but keep us in stealth mode. I want to see what's happening." The Wanderer moved silently through space using its advanced stealth systems. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 23 years. They were still considered junior members by most species, but human engineers had proven exceptional at designing ships that could hide from sensors as they approached Refuge 7. The main view screen activated. What Daniel saw made him want to vomit. 3 massive warships hung in orbit around the peaceful blue and green world below. They were firing concentrated plasma beams at the surface. Each beam struck with the force of a nuclear weapon. Cities vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Forests burned, oceans boiled where the beams touched them. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. Her face had gone pale. Jake Morrison ran a quick analysis of the attacking ships. Those vessels belonged to the Vrectan Dominion, confirmed by their hull markings and energy signatures. Daniel knew of the Vrectan. They were one of the more powerful empires in the galaxy. They had vast military resources and controlled dozens of star systems. They were also known for their ruthless approach to business and expansion. Why are they attacking a protected species? Dr. Chun pulled up geological surveys of Refuge 7. The planet has massive deposits of carium crystals in its crust. Carium is extremely rare and valuable. It's used in advanced power systems throughout the galaxy. A planet with this much carium would be worth trillions. The pieces fell into place in Daniel's mind. The Vrectan wanted the planet's resources. The Kalahari were in the ways, so the Vrectan were simply removing them. It was genocide for profit. "Start recording everything," Daniel ordered. His voice was hard as iron. "I want full sensor logs, visual records, intercepted communications. Document every single moment of this." The bridge crew worked in horrified silence as they watched the massacre unfold below. The Vrectan were methodical in their destruction. They targeted population centers first, then agricultural regions, then any structure larger than a small building. They were erasing the Kalahari from existence. Maya suddenly looked up from her station with tears streaming down her face. "Captain, I'm intercepting a transmission from the surface. It's on an emergency frequency. Should I play it?" Daniel nodded, even though he dreaded what he would hear. The Message came through filled with static, but the words were clear. The Wanderer's translation. Systems converted the alien language to English in real time. Female voice spoke with desperate urgency. This is Kella of the coastal settlement. If anyone can hear this, please help us. Ships from the sky are destroying everything. My daughter Nira is with me in the shelter. The walls are shaking. I can hear the explosions getting closer. We never hurt anyone. We only wanted to live in peace. Please, someone. Anyone. The transmission ended in a burst of static and screaming then. Nothing silence filled the bridge of the Wanderer. Maya was crying openly. Now dear Chun had her hand over her mouth. Jake Morrison's jaw was clenched so tight Daniel could see the muscles standing out. Daniel forced himself to remain calm, even though rage burned in his chest. Continue recording, he said quietly. We bear witness. That's all we can do right now. For 6 more hours, the crew of the Wanderer watched the extermination of an entire species. The Vrectum were thorough. They left nothing alive, no cities standing, no forests untouched, no hope remaining. When the bombardment finally ceased, Refuge 7 was a smoking ruin. 3 billion sentient beings had been murdered. The Vrectum warships performed a final sensor sweep to confirm their work was complete. Then they simply left. They jumped to hyperspace without ceremony or acknowledgement. Another day's work for them. Daniel immediately composed an encrypted quantum message to Earth. He included all the sensor data, all the recordings, everything they had witnessed. He marked it priority alpha, then he recorded a personal log entry. His hands were shaking as he spoke. We came to the stars, believing we would find enlightenment among the alien species. We thought joining the galactic community meant joining something better than humanity. Instead, we found monsters. We found species that commit genocide as casually as humans file paperwork. And we did nothing. We watched. We recorded. We hid in the shadows like cowards while 3 billion innocent beings died. He paused and looked at the dead world on his view screen. But maybe that's about to change. Because Earth needs to see this. Humanity needs to know what kind of galaxy we really live in. And then humanity needs to decide what we're going to do about it. Jake Morrison stood beside Daniel's chair. What do you think Earth will do? Sir? Daniel thought about human history. He thought about how humans responded to injustice throughout their past. How they fought when they saw innocents suffering. How they could be driven to terrible action by righteous fury. I think the galaxy is about to learn something about humans. Daniel said, I think they're about to learn that we remember. We remember every slight, every injustice, every innocent life taken. And I think they're going to regret teaching us that power is all that matters in this galaxy. The Wanderers set course for Earth behind them. Refuge 7 spun in silent orbit, tuned for 3 billion souls, a grave marker for galactic innocence and a spark that would ignite a fire across the stars. The evidence from the Wanderer reached Earth 3 days after the genocide. The quantum transmission contained everything. Sensor logs, visual recordings, intercepted communications, and that final desperate message from Kella and her daughter within hours. The files spread across every human network. Every news channel played the recordings. Every screen showed the destruction of Refuge 7. The message from the Kalahari mother played in homes, offices, and public spaces around the world. People heard her desperate plea for help. They heard her daughter's name. They heard the moment the transmission ended. Earth erupted in fury. Protests formed outside every alien embassy on the planet. Millions of humans took to the streets demanding justice. The anger was unlike anything humanity had experienced since the wars of the previous century. Admiral Patricia Hayes watched the protests from her office window at the United Nations Space Command Headquarters in Geneva. She had been a naval officer for 32 years. She had commanded ships in 3 major conflicts, but she had never seen humanity this united. Enraged her assistant, Commander Kyle Rogers entered with the latest reports. Admiral, the protests are spreading to every human colony. Mars, Europa Station, the Belt Settlements. Everyone is demanding we take action. Patricia nodded. She had expected this. What's the status of Ambassador Parker's meeting with the Galactic Council? Kyle's expression darkened. You should watch the recording. Admiral, it's bad. Patricia pulled up the video file on her desk screen. Ambassador Helen Parker stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council around her set representatives from 43 different species. She presented the evidence clearly and passionately. She showed them what the Recton had done. She demanded justice under galactic law. The response made Patricia's blood boil. Council members expressed vague concern. They promised to form an investigative committee. They spoke about diplomatic channels and proper procedures. Several species representatives actually laughed when Helen demanded immediate action. One particularly pompous alien from the Zethian Concordat dismissed the entire matter. Young species often struggle to understand galactic realities. Conflict over resources is natural. The galactic community cannot intervene in every local dispute. Helen's face went red with anger. 3 billion sentient beings were murdered. This wasn't a dispute. This was genocide. The Recton ambassador, a massive creature named Throck, actually smiled. The Kelhari occupied territory rich in strategic resources. We claimed that territory under Precedent Law 47. Ancient rights established millennia before your species discovered fire. Everything was legal. The council did nothing. No sanctions, no condemnations, no justice, just empty words and bureaucratic delays. The message was crystal clear. The Vrecton were too powerful economically and militarily. Council feared them more than they cared about justice. Helen returned to Earth defeated and furious. Patricia met with her immediately. They're not going to do anything, are they? Patricia asked. Helen shook her head. They don't care. Power is all that matters in the galaxy. We're too new, too weak to matter. The Vrecton can do whatever they want. President Richard Coleman called an emergency meeting with Earth's entire leadership, military commanders, government officials, scientific advisors, and civilian representatives gathered in the Situation Room. President looked at each person in turn. His face showed the weight of what he was about to propose. I've been reviewing the public response to what happened at Refuge 7. Coleman began. Our people are demanding action. They want justice for the Kelhari. The Galactic Council has made it clear they will provide no such justice. He paused and took a deep breath. So I'm asking this group to consider an alternative. What? If we take justice ourselves? The room erupted in shocked conversation. General Marcus Webb, head of strategic operations, stood up. Mr. President, are you suggesting we go to war with the Vrecton Dominion? Coleman met his gaze steadily. I'm suggesting we show the galaxy that genocide has consequences, even when the Council is too afraid to act. I'm suggesting we become what they fear. Dr. Alan Foster, the chief military strategist, pulled up tactical displays. The Vrecton Dominion controls 37 star systems. They have one of the largest military forces in known space. A direct confrontation would be costly, maybe impossible. Patricia leaned forward. Unless we change the rules of engagement. Everyone turned to look at her. The galaxy fights wars according to established conventions. She continued. Honor codes, rules of warfare, limits on acceptable weapons. What if we ignore all of that? What if we fight to win regardless of cost? Alan Parker spoke up. That would make us like them. Ruthless, brutal. Patricia nodded slowly. Yes, but there's a difference. They commit genocide for profit. We would do it for justice. They destroy the innocent. We would destroy the guilty. President Coleman called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would mobilize for total war. The president addressed the United Nations General Assembly the next day. His Speech was broadcast to every human settlement across the solar system and beyond. "My fellow humans," he began, "we have witnessed something that cannot be ignored. 3 billion innocent beings were murdered. A mother named Kella and her daughter Nira died begging for help that never came. The galaxy told us this is acceptable. The galaxy told. Use power determines right. The galaxy told us to accept this and move on." His voice grew harder. "I say no. I say if the galaxy will not provide justice, then we will take it. I say if they fear nothing, then we become what they fear." Effective immediately, Earth enters total mobilization. Every resource, every factory, every laboratory will focus on a single goal. We will build a military force capable of destroying the Vrectan Dominion. We will hunt down every individual responsible for the Kalahari genocide. We will show the galaxy that humanity does not forget. We will show them that innocent blood has a price, and we will make the Vrectan pay that price in full. The response from Earth's population was overwhelming. Support volunteers flooded recruitment centers, engineers and scientists offered their expertise. Factory workers accepted extended shifts. Everyone wanted to contribute. Patricia received authorization to begin Project Vengeance. She had unlimited access to resources and personnel. Her mission was clear. Create a fleet capable of total victory against a superior enemy. General Webb assembled his top strategists. The Vrectan expect us to fight like other galactic species, he told them, honorably, with restraint, following the established rules of warfare. That's their mistake. Dr. Foster pulled up designs for new weapon systems. If we're doing this, we need to do it right. No half measures, no mercy. We build weapons designed to terrify. One of the younger officers, Commander Lisa Grant, raised a concern. General, if we become monsters to fight monsters, what does that make us? Webb looked at her with hard eyes. It makes us survivors. It makes us the species that refuse to accept genocide as business as usual. The Preintovers, the species that refuse to accept genocide as business as usual. The galaxy will judge us, but at least they'll judge us as dangerous. Better to be feared than pitied across Earth and its colonies. The transformation began. Shipyards expanded to triple their previous capacity. New weapons research facilities appeared. Overnight training centers for military personnel opened in every major city. Humanity was changing. The naive newcomers to galactic society were dying. Something harder and colder was being born in their place. Admiral Hayes stood in the command center watching construction begin on the first warship of the Vengeance fleet. They were calling it the Nemesis. It would be her flagship. Behind her, Commander Rogers asked the question on everyone's mind. Admiral, do you think we can actually win this? Patricia watched the sparks fly as workers assembled the ship's massive frame. Win? She replied, Commander, winning isn't the point. The point is teaching the galaxy a lesson they'll never forget. The point is making sure no one ever again thinks they can commit genocide without consequences. If we have to become what we fear to do that, then so be it. She turned to face him. Alert all commands. Tell them the timeline is 18 months. In 18 months, we go to war. And God help the Vrectan, because we won't. 80 months passed like a storm across humanity. Earth and every human colony transformed into a single massive war machine focused on one purpose. Vengeance. Dr. Stephen Park led the advanced propulsion research team at the Luna facility before the genocide. He had been working on improving civilian transport efficiency. Now, he worked on making human warships faster and deadlier than anything the galaxy had ever seen. His team made breakthroughs that shocked even themselves. They developed a hyperspace drive that could jump human ships across the galaxy in hours instead of days. They created stealth systems so advanced that human vessels could appear in enemy space without any Warning, they built engines that allowed human warships to accelerate and maneuver in ways that would crush pilots from other species. Humans could handle higher G-forces because they evolved on a heavier gravity world. The galaxy called Earth a death world. No, humans would use that heritage as a weapon. Commander Nicole Grant supervised weapons development at the Mars Orbital Complex. She had been a weapons engineer for 12 years before the genocide. She thought she understood destructive capability. The new weapons her team created made everything before look like children's toys. They developed plasma cannons that could punch through any known shield technology. They created missiles that tracked targets through hyperspace. They built bombs designed not just to destroy ships, but to ensure nothing inside could survive. Other species used weapons that targeted ship systems. Human weapons targeted living crew. It was brutal and efficient and absolutely terrifying. Are we sure about this? One of her junior engineers asked as they tested a new plasma warhead. This thing doesn't just destroy. It makes sure everyone aboard suffers before they die. Nicole looked at him with cold eyes. Did you watch the recordings from Refuge 7? Did you hear that mother and her daughter? The engineer nodded. Then you know why. We build these weapons. The Vrectan showed no mercy. We'll show them exactly what that looks like from the receiving end. Captain Daniel Cross had returned from the Wanderer to take command of the Special Forces training program. 50,000 volunteers had been selected for planetary assault operations. These weren't peacekeepers or explorers. They were being forged into something humanity had never created before. Soldiers designed to strike fear into alien hearts every morning. The trainees watched recordings of the Kalahari genocide every day. They heard Kella's final message every night. They trained until their bodies broke, and then trained more. Cross pushed them harder than any training program in human history. You need to understand what we're becoming, he told a group of new recruits. We're not the good guys anymore. We're the monsters who hunt monsters. When we land on Vrectan worlds, they need to be more afraid of us than they've ever been of anything. The recruits absorbed his words and trained harder. Lieutenant Maya Sullivan ran intelligence operations from a classified facility beneath Geneva. She had been the one to hear Kayla's message first. That voice haunted her dreams now. She channeled that pain into building the most comprehensive intelligence network humanity had ever created. Human agents infiltrated Vrectan space. They mapped every military installation, every supply route, every command center. They identified the specific commanders who had ordered the bombardment of Refuge 7. They found the pilots who had fired the weapons. They located every single individual who had participated in the genocide. Maya kept detailed files on each one. Their names, their families, their daily routines, their locations. Fleet launched. They would know exactly who to hunt. Director Karen Mills led the Psychological Warfare Division. Her job was to ensure the entire galaxy knew what was coming. Anonymous messages began appearing on communication networks across known space messages that said things like, "You stood by while innocents died. Now stand by while justice arrives. Pray, we remember the difference." Other species began to notice the scale of human activity. It was impossible to hide the mobilization. Hundreds of new warships under construction, millions of humans in military training, entire industries converted to weapons production. The Galactic Council demanded explanations. Ambassador Helen Parker gave them the answer they deserved. We're preparing for a field trip. Nothing that concerns the Council. Her cold smile made several representatives visibly uncomfortable. The Vrectan Dominion sent their own demands. They wanted humans to stop military buildup. They threatened sanctions and blockades. High Warlord Kreth, the military leader of the Vrectan, broadcast a message calling humanity's actions provocative and dangerous. His message was intercepted by Maya's intelligence teams. They sent a reply through encrypted channels. It simply said, "We're coming for you specifically. Run if you can." The message included a list of names everyone who had participated in the Kelari Genocide Decreth never broadcast another threat. The first warships of the Vengeance fleet began launching from Earth's orbital shipyards. They were massive vessels painted pitch black, no elegant curves, like galactic ships. These were brutal and functional, pure instruments of destruction. Each ship carried a name, chosen by public vote: Retribution, Fury, Reckoning, Nemesis, Justice, names that promised exactly what they would deliver. Admiral Hayes inspected the Nemesis as final preparations completed. The ship was 5 times larger than any previous human warship. It carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet alone, and it was just one of 500 identical vessels. Commander Kyle Rogers walked beside her through the ship's armored corridors. "The crew is calling these the Vengeance-class warships," he said. "Seems appropriate." Patricia nodded. "These ships have one purpose. They exist to destroy the Recton Dominion completely. Every system, every fleet, every installation. We're not going to war to conquer. We're going to war to erase them." In training facilities across human space, Captain Cross's soldiers prepared for deployment. They had trained for 18 months without pause. They knew Recton language, culture, military tactics, and psychology. They knew how to fight in Recton environments. They knew how to hunt specific targets across entire planets. Most importantly, they knew why they were doing this. Sergeant Linda Torres led a squad of assault specialists. She gathered her team for a final briefing before they shipped out to the Vengeance fleet. "Remember what we're there for," she told them. "We're not there to conquer Recton worlds. We're there to extract specific individuals for trial. We go in hard. We find our targets. We bring them back. Anyone who gets in our way learns what humans do to those who commit genocide." Her squad nodded in understanding. They were ready. DR Park's research teams completed the final upgrades to the fleet's hyperspace drives. The Vengeance fleet could now move faster than any military force in galactic history. They could strike anywhere in Recton space within hours. No warning, no time to prepare defenses. Just sudden, overwhelming violence. Nicole Grant armed the last of the warships with the new weapon systems. She personally tested each plasma cannon and missile launcher. Everything worked perfectly. These weapons would tear through Recton ships like paper. "The fleet is ready," she reported to Admiral Hayes. "Every ship is armed and operational. Every weapon tested and proven. We can leave whenever you give the order." Patricia stood in the command center of the Nemesis. Around her, 500 warships hung in formation, each one capable of destroying entire fleets alone. Together, they represented the most powerful military force ever assembled by humanity. Below her, Earth turned peacefully in the darkness. She thought about what they were about to become. The galaxy had forced this transformation. They had shown humanity that only power mattered. Now humanity would demonstrate exactly what that meant. Open fleet-wide communications. Patricia ordered. Every captain and crew member in the Vengeance fleet heard her words. "For 80 months, we have prepared for this moment. We have built these ships. We have trained our forces. We have planned our strike, all for one purpose: justice. For 3 billion innocent beings who were murdered simply because they were in the way. Justice for a mother named Kella and her daughter Nira. Justice for every species wondering if monsters can be stopped." Her voice grew harder. "The galaxy will judge what we're about to do. They'll call us brutal. They'll call us merciless. They'll call us exactly what we're becoming. But they'll never again dismiss humanity as weak. And they'll never again think genocide is acceptable." She paused. "For the Kelhari, for justice, for every innocent life. Now we show them what humans become when you force us to abandon hope for peace." The fleet acknowledged with a single phrase that echoed across all channels. "Now we become what you fear." Patricia gave the final order. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination: Recton Dominion core systems. Operation Vengeance is go. 500 warships vanished into hyperspace simultaneously behind them. Earth watched and waited ahead of them. The Vrectan Dominion had no idea. What was coming. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson about humanity. Never make them choose between becoming monsters or allowing genocide, because humans will become monsters every single time. The Vengeance Fleet emerged from hyperspace across 24 Vrectan systems simultaneously. No warning, no declaration of war, no opportunity to surrender. They simply appeared and began firing. Admiral Patricia Hayes watched from the bridge of the Nemesis as human warships engaged the Vrectan defense fleets. The enemy never had a chance. Vrectan commanders had prepared for traditional warfare. They expected negotiations. Warnings. Time to mobilize their forces. Instead, human ships appeared at point-blank range and opened fire with weapons the Vrectan had never encountered. The new plasma cannons punched through Vrectan shields as if they didn't exist. Human missiles tracked enemy ships through every evasive maneuver. Vrectan warships exploded one after another. Their crews died before they could even understand what was attacking them. Commander Jake Morrison coordinated tactical operations from his station. Target priority remains the same. He called out flag officers and command ships first. We want their leadership. The human ships moved with precision but stunned observers from other species. Several neutral vessels were monitoring the engagement from safe distances. They watched in shock as the supposedly junior human species systematically destroyed one of the galaxy's strongest military forces on the surface of Vrectan Prime. Warlord Kreth received reports of the human attack. 24 systems under simultaneous assault defense fleets being destroyed, casualties mounting by the second. How is this possible? He demanded. Humans have only been in space for a few decades. His tactical officer showed him sensor readings of the human weapons. Sir, their technology is far beyond what we expected. They're not fighting like any galactic species. They're not following any established warfare protocols. They're just killing everything. Kreth activated his communication systems and broadcast. On all frequencies, this is High Warlord Kreth of the Vrectan Dominion to all military forces. We are under attack by human forces. All available ships are to converge on the core systems immediately. This is a general mobilization order. His broadcast was intercepted by Lieutenant Maya Sullivan's intelligence teams. She smiled coldly. Let them gather their forces. It'll make our job easier. Captain Daniel Cross and his special assault teams launched from the Vengeance Fleet toward Vrectan military installations. Their dropships penetrated planetary atmospheres at speeds that would have killed most alien species. Human pilots could handle the G-forces because of their Death World heritage. The dropships landed hard outside Vrectan military headquarters. Across a dozen worlds, Cross led his team into the largest facility personally. They wore powered armor and carried weapons designed for close combat. The Vrectan soldiers inside tried to mount a defense. It was like trying to stop a hurricane with umbrellas. Human soldiers moved through corridors with brutal efficiency. They weren't there to hold territory. They were there to find specific individuals. Cross's armor display showed him a list of names, officers who had participated in the Kelhari Genocide. He found the first one cowering in a command center, Commander Vrel, who had personally coordinated the orbital bombardment patterns. You're under arrest for genocide, Cross said through his armor's external speakers. Vrel tried to fight Cross, broke both his arms, and dragged him back to the dropshippers, the Vrectan Dominion. Similar scenes played out. Human assault teams extracted specific targets with surgical precision. Anyone who interfered learned exactly how dangerous humans could be. Sergeant Linda Torres and her squad fought their way through a fortified bunker complex. They were looking for Flight Leader Gorth, one of the pilots who had fired on Refuge 7. They found him trying to escape through underground tunnels. Doors blocked his path. You murdered 3 billion innocent beings. she said. "Now you face justice." Gorth pulled a weapon toward, shot him in both legs. "We need you alive for trial," she explained as her medic treated his wounds. "But we don't need you comfortable." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session as news of the human attack spread. Representatives from dozens of species demanded that humans cease their military operations immediately. Ambassador Helen Parker stood before the council chamber. Her expression showed no sympathy for their concerns. "The council had the opportunity to provide justice," she said calmly. "You chose to do nothing. You chose comfort over conscience. Now humanity chooses consequence over cooperation." The Zethian representative, who had dismissed human concerns months earlier, now spoke urgently. "This aggression cannot stand. The humans must be stopped before they destabilize the entire galactic order." Helen smiled without warmth. The galactic order allowed genocide. Perhaps it needs destabilization. Perhaps the galaxy needs to learn that innocent blood has a blood. Price, a representative from the Thalian Federation, spoke up. "But humans are attacking one of the most powerful military forces in known space. This will lead to massive casualties on both sides." Helen pulled up tactical displays showing the current state of the conflict. "Actually, the casualties are quite one-sided. Vrectan losses are catastrophic. Human losses are minimal. We're not at war with them. We're exterminating them." The council chamber erupted in shock. Conversation. Several species began calling for military intervention to stop the humans. Helen's response silenced them all. "Any species that interferes will be considered complicit in the Kelhari genocide. You'll be added to our target list. Stand aside or learn why Earth is called a death world." No one moved to help. The Vrectan Admiral Hayes coordinated the fleet operations from the Nemesis. The Vrectan had managed to assemble a massive counterattack force. 200 warships converged on the human fleet near Vrectan Primate. Was the largest concentration of Vrectan military power in their history. The battle began with the Vrectan opening fire from maximum range. Their weapons had been effective against every enemy they had ever faced. Against human ships, they were almost useless. The human shields held easily against Vrectan weapons. Meanwhile, human plasma cannons reached out across impossible distance. Vrectan ships began exploding before they could even close to effective range. Commander Kyle Rogers watched the tactical display in amazement. "They're not even scratching our shields, but we're cutting through them like they're made of paper." Patricia nodded. "Dr. Park's team did excellent work. Our technology is 2 generations ahead of anything the galaxy has. They literally cannot hurt us." The Battle of Vrectan Prime lasted 4 hours when it ended. The entire Vrectan counterattack force was destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. The psychological impact on the Vrectan was devastating. Their strongest military force had been effortlessly annihilated. Their most fortified positions had been breached by human ground forces. Their leadership was being hunted and captured one by one on Vrectan Prime. Warlord Kreth watched the destruction of his military. He broadcast one final message calling for his people to resist the human invasion. He never finished the transmission. Captain Cross and his team breached Kreth's command center in the middle of his speech. The broadcast cut to static as human soldiers took control of the facility. Kreth found himself in restraints, looking up at Cross's armored form. "You're going to kill me like we killed them," Kreth said. Cross's voice was cold through the armor speakers. "No, we're not you. We're something worse. We're humans who value life enough to teach its value to monsters. You'll face trial. You'll face justice. And every species watching will learn what happens when you commit genocide." Within 8 days of the first attack, the Vrectan Dominion ceased to exist as a political entity. Their military was shattered. Their leadership was captured. Their infrastructure was in ruins. Human forces controlled every major system. 73 individuals directly responsible for the Kelhari genocide had been taken into custody. Director Karen Mills ensured every moment of the campaign was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. Every species received detailed footage of human military capabilities. The message was unmistakable. This was what humanity could do when provoked. This was what happened to those who committed genocide. The psychological impact rippled across the galaxy. Species that had dismissed humans as weak newcomers now reconsidered. Several governments that had been planning territorial expansion suddenly canceled those plans. The idea that might made right began to seem less appealing when humans demonstrated exactly what real might looked like. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Nemesis above the Concord. Recton Prime, her fleet, had suffered only 12 casualties during the entire campaign. The Recton had lost hundreds of thousands. It hadn't been a war. It had been an extermination, Commander. Rogers approached her with the final casualty reports. Is this what victory looks like, Admiral? Patricia looked at the broken world below. She thought about the 3 billion Kalahari who would never see justice. No, Commander. This is what consequence looks like. Victory would have been preventing the genocide in the first place. She activated fleet communications. All ships, prepare to return to Earth. We're bringing our prisoners home for trial. Let the galaxy see what human justice looks like. As the Vengeance fleet began the journey home, one message played on repeat across all Recton frequencies. It was Kayla's voice, the desperate plea she had made as her world burned. By Helen Parker's words, you chose to ignore her, so humanity chose to answer her. Remember this when you consider your next genocide. Remember what humans become when you force them to choose between becoming monsters or allowing innocents to die. 6 months after the Recton campaign, the galaxy struggled to understand what humanity had become. Swift and brutal destruction of one of the most powerful military forces in known space had shattered every assumption about galactic power. Structures humanity hadn't just won a war, they had demonstrated capabilities that made them the single most dangerous species anyone had encountered. The trials of the 73 captured Recton officials began on Earth. The proceedings were held in a massive courtroom in The Hague. Every moment was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Billions of beings watched as humans demonstrated what justice meant to them. President Richard Coleman opened the trials with a speech that set the tone. We are here because 3 billion innocent beings were murdered, he said. We are here because the galaxy chose to do nothing about that murder. We are here to show every species watching that human justice is not revenge. It is accountability. The trials lasted 4 months. Prosecutors presented exhaustive evidence. For each crime, they named every Kalahari settlement that had been destroyed. They showed footage of the bombardment. They played Kella's final message dozens of times. Attorneys were provided for each accused. Human lawyers who argued vigorously for their clients despite personal revulsion. The trials were meticulous and fair. Every defendant had the opportunity to present their case. Several claimed they were following orders. Others said they were just doing their jobs. A few showed genuine remorse. Most showed nothing but contempt for human justice. High Warlord Kreth testified that everything he did was legal under galactic precedent. Your species doesn't understand how the galaxy works, he told the court. Power determines survival. The weak are consumed by the strong. That is natural law. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Brooks, stood to cross-examine him. You keep saying natural law, she said, but there's nothing natural about systematically murdering 3 billion defenseless beings. That's not survival. That's evil. Kreth sneered at her. Humans are children playing at galactic politics. You'll learn. Jennifer pulled up an image of Refuge 7 before the attack. Green continents, blue oceans, clouds swirling in the atmosphere. This was a living world, she said. Then she showed the after image. Scorched wasteland, dead oceans, toxic atmosphere. This is what you created. Not for survival, not for defense. for profit. She turned back to Kreth. You're right that we're learning galactic politics. We learned that monsters like you exist. We learned that traditional justice doesn't apply to the powerful. So we became powerful enough to create new justice. The trials concluded. With verdicts 68 of the 73, defendants were convicted of genocide. 5 were acquitted due to insufficient evidence of direct participation. The galaxy watched in shock as humans released the 5 acquitted individuals. Ambassador Helen Parker held a press conference explaining the decision. We said we wanted justice, not revenge. She stated, justice means following the evidence wherever it leads, even when that means releasing our enemies. We will not compromise our principles just because we have the power to do so. The convicted individuals received life sentences in maximum security facilities, no death penalty, just permanent imprisonments. Everil. Galactic observers questioned why humans didn't execute the guilty Helens. Response became famous across the galaxy. We're not trying to become what they are. We're trying to teach them what they should have been. President Coleman addressed the Galactic Council 6 months after the trials concluded. It was his first appearance before the council since the Recton campaign. The chamber was packed with representatives wanting to hear what humanity would say. Coleman's speech was broadcast live across every civilized world. The Kalhari are gone. He began. 3 billion unique voices silenced forever. We cannot bring them back. We cannot undo what was done. But we can ensure it never happens again. He pulled up a document that had been circulated to every member species. This is the Kalhari Accord. He continued. Named for the species whose deaths taught humanity what kind of galaxy we live in. The terms are simple. Any species that commits genocide, any systematic extermination of sentient life, will face immediate human military intervention. No warnings, no negotiations, no exceptions. The council chamber erupted in argument. The Zethian representatives stood angrily. You cannot appoint yourselves as galactic police. You have no authority. Coleman's expression remained calm, but his voice grew cold. We're not asking for your permission. We're informing you of our policy. You can endorse the Kalhari Accord or not. Either way, humanity will enforce it. You taught us that power is all that matters in the galaxy. Now we have power, and we choose to use it to protect the innocent. Several species representatives objected loudly. Few threatened sanctions or military action. Coleman simply smiled. Any species that wishes to test human military capabilities is welcome to try. We'll add you to the list of nations receiving educational demonstrations. The threat stopped immediately. No one wanted to face what the Recton had faced. The council ultimately voted to endorse the Kalhari Accord, not because they agreed with it, but because opposing it meant potential conflict with humanity, and no one was willing to risk that Dr. Lisa Chung led scientific teams in orbit around Refuge 7. They were cataloging everything that remained of Kalhari civilization, fragments of art recovered from the ruins, pieces of literature translated from surviving data course, children's toys found in destroyed homes. Every item was carefully preserved and documented. The work was heartbreaking, but essentially massive. Orbital station was being constructed above the dead world. It would serve as a memorial and museum. A permanent reminder of what had been lost. Chun stood in what would become the main exhibition hall. Holographic displays showed Kalhari cities as they had been. Recordings of their music played softly. Images of their art covered the walls. In the center of the hall stood a monument, a holographic projection of Kella holding her daughter near the final image captured from her transmission beneath it. Words in English and every major galactic language. Here lived the Kalhari. They were murdered. We remember. We prevent. Never again. Captain Daniel Cross visited the memorial during its opening ceremony. He stood before the monument with Lieutenant Maya Sullivan. They had been the first humans to witness the genocide. They had heard Kella's desperate plea for help. Do you think this means anything? Maya asked quietly. We saved no one. We just avenged them. Daniel looked at the hologram of the Kalahari mother and child. Maybe that's enough. He said, maybe preventing the next genocide is all we can do. Maybe that has to be enough. The galactic community fractured in response to humanity's new position. Some species embraced the Kalahari Accord. They had long feared suffering similar fates and welcomed human protection. Several minor civilizations formally requested human defense agreements. Others resented human power and authority. They called humans hypocrites and tyrants. They formed their own alliances to counter human influence. The Galactic Council lost significant authority as species took sides. Admiral Patricia Hayes oversaw the reorganization of human military forces. The Vengeance Fleet was being converted into rapid response forces. They would be stationed throughout the galaxy, ready to intervene anywhere within hours. New protocols were established for monitoring potential genocides. Intelligence networks expanded across known space. Humanity was becoming the galaxy's enforcer, whether the galaxy liked it or not. Commander Kyle Rogers asked Hayes if she had any regrets about what they had done. She thought carefully before answering. Regrets about stopping genocide? No. Regrets about what we became in order to stop it. Every single day. But I'd make the same choices again, because the alternative is allowing monsters to act without consequence. President Coleman recorded a final message to be added to the Kalahari Memorial. His words would be preserved for future generations. To the 3 billion we couldn't save. He began. We became what we feared we would become. We became monsters who hunt monsters. We became a species willing to abandon idealism for effectiveness. We cannot give you the justice that matters most. You're gone, and nothing we do will change that. But we can make sure you weren't forgotten. We can make sure your deaths meant something. We can make sure it never happens again. He paused, emotion showing on his face. I hope you understand. I hope wherever you are, you know that humanity tried to honor your memory. We tried to create something good from something terrible. We're sorry we arrived too late to save you, but we promise we'll arrive in time for the next victims. The final scene showed the Wanderer. The ship that had first discovered the genocide had now maintained permanent station in orbit around Refuge 7. Captain Cross had volunteered his ship for eternal guard duty. They would ensure no one disturbed the memorial. They would ensure the Kalahari were never truly alone. Construction crews worked around the clock on the massive monument visible from space. It would be the largest memorial structure ever built by humanity, tall enough to be seen from orbit without magnification. The inscription would simply read, "The Kalahari lived here." Ambassador Helen Parker stood in her office on Earth, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Humanity's transformation had created ripples that would last for generations. They were no longer the idealistic newcomers seeking friendship among the stars. They were the species others feared, the enforcers of laws the galaxy hadn't wanted.